Good morning, Mr. Supervisor. Good morning, Town Board. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak about the proposed budget that we have in front of us today. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, "Those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it." I'd like to just share some of, Mr. Supervisor, your quotes from an article back in 2001. Nassau County's fiscal crisis is a debate between candidates at election time, and the need for a solution is evident. If Nassau County did the same things that we did here in the town of Oyster Bay, they would not have had their problems, said Vendetto. I refuse to allow the problems that visited Nassau County to come to the town of Oyster Bay. We have an A1 bond rating. The investors, the people who are willing to invest literally millions of dollars in this town, are very comfortable with the town of Oyster Bay to the point where they put their money where their mouth is. The 2002 budget was just recently completed in the town of Oyster Bay, and according to Vendetto, there is no tax increase for 2002. When I became supervisor, this town was facing a looming $30 million deficit, said Vendetto, who classifies himself as a fiscal conservative. I said at the time I needed 3 years to correct the situation, and the budget that I just introduced and adopted is the culmination of all that hard work. We had a looming $30 million deficit that was averted, and now the economic outlook of the town looks bright. I'd like everybody just to fast forward to today, 2015. We almost have an $800 million deficit. There is no surplus. The bond ratings are near junk. The town employees have been on a 3-year payroll lag. They haven't even been paid up to date. The town has had to borrow for the last 3 years to make the last 3 months of payroll every year. Now, I'm not a financial expert, but to me that seems like we're using one credit card to pay off another credit card. I understand that your budget that you're presenting today is proposed. I think it is only fair to all the residents in the town of Oyster Bay that you announce your adopted budget prior to your elections November 3rd, so everyone can know what the real budget is. Because quite frankly, I'm skeptical. I don't see how you cannot raise taxes. Thank you very much.
Rob, before you go away, let me just assure you, depending on what we hear during the course of the day, our plan is to vote on the final budget tonight, adopt the final budget after the ninth session tonight, so that there will be no question at all. As of this evening, you'll have a final budget in place in the town of Oyster Bay for the upcoming year, 2016.
Thank you very much, sir.
But don't go away. I don't want to dwell on this. I don't know what Winston Churchill said, but I can tell you what John Vendetto said. In 2002, I didn't have a crystal ball that worked. No one could know what was going to happen in 2007 and 2008. We've seen governments the world over, nations, states, counties, towns, villages, school districts all go belly up. And the town of Oyster Bay survived quite nicely, thank you, and led us to the budget that we're introducing now with no tax increase. And I don't mind telling you, hopefully we're going to get into it a little bit later. I don't want to start beating everybody over the head with it. But other municipalities are not only suffering financially, but their infrastructures are collapsing. When you drive across the length and breadth of Long Island, you know when you're in the town of Oyster Bay. You know it by our roads. You know it by our parks. You know it by our communities. You heard me say earlier, 92% of the people living here, they get it. Yes, spending money and being mindful of what you're spending is one thing, but how you spend it is important too. And this administration, there's no one else here to say it for me, so I have to say it. This administration inherited a town back in the late 90s. You heard about the financial problems, you outlined them yourself, but beyond the financial problems, we had a town, a beautiful town with residents who care. We had a town that was still in the dark ages. Over 30 years, the roads were treated with something called slurry seal. You get the job done, and a year later you need it again. The parks were okay, but, you know, a new fence here and a new fence there, and that's all that was happening. The town has moved from the dark ages into the new millennium. It's been incredible what's been done in this town. Yes, it does cost money, but what price do you put on quality of life? What price do you put on what we're saying about this town for generations to come? You really have to factor that into your thinking. It's not always about just numbers, Robert. It's about people. It's about the people who live here. You know, when they completed the recent census, and the census again in 2000, I got a number of calls. I put the word out there, but, well, I have to put the word out there myself because I can't seem to get it out there to the general public. But I got enough people in this room, and some of you may have heard this before. It's not a coincidence. I don't know how they do this. In the age of computers, when they do the census, they can apparently learn a lot of things. The town of Oyster Bay led the northeast quadrant. Get a load of this. In residents who live here and don't leave and pass on their property to the next generation. There's a reason for why they want to stay. And the town of Oyster Bay, in a 12-month period that they used as a survey, led the Northeast region in the increase in property values. Not by 1% or 2%. The town of Oyster Bay's increase in property values during that 12-month period was 22%. The next highest was 8% in another Long Island town. I don't like mentioning other towns' names. That's not me bragging. That's a statement from somebody who doesn't live in the town saying, I'm willing to pay 1/5 to 1/4 more to live in the town of Oyster Bay. Listen, we are asset rich and we're hurting cash-wise. I get it. I understand that. No one's ever hid from that. But at the end of the day, as we like to say in the new millennium, when mortgage tax, which by the way used to be 24 million in revenue to us, dropped to a low of 8 million, that's a big hit for a town to take. But when the sun comes out again, the cash will be there, the money will be there, and guess what? The town of Oyster Bay will have great roads and great parks and great property values. But we have to weather the storm. We did it in the late 90s, and we're doing it again right now. And I think I'm hopeful that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But you look around, there isn't a municipality anywhere that isn't struggling with the things we're struggling with. There's nothing inordinate happening in the town of Oyster Bay. But just do know at the end of the day, this town, it'll still be here. Only it's going to be in better shape than it ever has been for generations to come.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and as we discussed at the last meeting, I think everybody here really appreciates the town of Oyster Bay. That's why we're all here. I don't think there's anyone here that's against the town. But I just want to point out, for instance, you use parks as a reference, and you know I live down in South Massapequa, and the parks, I mean, they've been transformed enormously, Burns Park and Field of Dreams. But my point is, on both of those parks, how many times was the AstroTurf replaced? I mean, if you look at the contracts and you look at the AstroTurf, I think Field of Dreams, the AstroTurf was replaced like 3 times. I mean, listen, it's a great place and we have great parks and we love it, but we need some fiscal responsibility also. I just want you to.
But you know what?
Let me please finish.
But you can't just do that. I don't know the number of times. I'll try to get answers about AstroTurf and what have you. But let me Zero? Okay, I figured as much. But
no, I don't think it was 0. But.
All right, well, that's not what I want to debate about. I don't want to debate at all. But don't say that. Don't stand there and say, "Oh well, you know, too much money was spent there." Let me ask you something. Would you have not done the Field of Dreams?
I wouldn't have done it over and over and over. I would have done it correctly the first time.
I think you just got told it wasn't done over and over.
Okay, I don't agree with that. No, I didn't come up.
So you wouldn't have done the Field of Dreams?
I didn't say that.
Well, what are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm happy to hear that you're going to have adopted budget this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I figured that.
Okay, we'll speak later.
Thank you. Thank you. Robert Fryer.